Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second annual Aguna Awareness event, Pathways to Peace. We are grateful to have you all here tonight for this important occasion. We have an incredible lineup of speakers who are sure to educate and inspire us all. Their insights and experiences will shed light on a pressing issue within our community that requires our attention and compassion. This past year has been an exceptionally challenging year for our Jewish nation, and now more than ever, we must come together in unity. Our primary mission as an organization is to foster peace within couples. When Shalom Bayit is no longer attainable, we strive to assist those couples in transitioning peacefully with dignity and respect. Each case is handled with the utmost care through delicate mediation by our dedicated members, ensuring a positive resolution for all involved. We firmly believe that withholding a get, whether by a man refusing to grant it or a woman refusing to accept it, will not be tolerated. Our approach is to resolve these cases one by one, not through conflict, but through constructive dialogue and peaceful solutions. I am truly honored to work alongside such remarkable individuals in our organization, including my wife Alana, who shares our commitment to this cause. Now it is my pleasure to introduce a leader whose selflessness and dedication are an inspiration to us all. Stephen Ashkenazi, our president, tirelessly puts the needs of others ahead of his own. His unwavering support for Agunot and those suffering from the pain of get refusal has made a significant impact in our community. Please join me in welcoming the president of the LEV organization, Stephen Ashkenazi.
Thank you, Sean, for those kind words. Without you and the entire team, the success of our organization and tonight's event would not be possible. Your unwavering dedication and passion have been an inspiration to us all. Esteemed rabbis, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second annual Aguna Awareness event, Pathways to Peace. As Sean mentioned, and as you hear tonight from our esteemed speakers, Rabbi Ozeri and Eli Goldbaum, we operate under two mottos. Eli, I'm stealing your line. Working to create Shalom Bayit when possible, and if it's not achievable, working towards quote-unquote Shalom divorce. Our mission is clear: to end the vicious cycle of abuse on all fronts and to ensure that entire families are protected. Most importantly, we aim to shield the children from the profound consequences of divorce. I've had the honor and privilege of serving as the president of the LEV organization for nearly 3 years now. During this time, we have made significant strides. We have always approached our work with integrity and a desire to serve a higher purpose, L'Shem Shamayim. In these 3 years, we have begun to normalize the difficult conversations surrounding Jewish divorce process, gaining the respect and trust of many community rabbis and leaders along the way. I am proud to share that as of today, we have successfully resolved 27 cases directly and many more indirectly. While this number may seem modest at first glance, I invite you to pause and consider the profound impact that resolving the lives of these 27 individuals has had. Each case represents a life transformed, a family restored, and a child shielded from the turmoil of divorce. This is a tremendous achievement and a testament to our team's unwavering dedication to this cause. Just earlier today, I was speaking with Rabbi Barhan from the Cedar Avenue Shul, and when he heard me mention the number 27, he said, "Stephen, that is not a coincidence." He goes, 27 is a very important number. On Hanukkah, we bring Shemen Zayit Zach. Zach is the equivalent of 20. Zach means pure, and the gematria numerical value is 27. So this is a sign from Hashem that we're doing the right thing and we're on the right path, l'shem shamayim. Later this evening, I will have the pleasure of introducing to you two of our most recent success stories. Their journeys are not just victories for them, but for all of us as a community. They remind us of what is possible when we come together in solidarity and support. Yet despite our efforts, we find ourselves inundated with distress calls daily, a stark reminder of the work that still lies ahead. The reality is sobering. The number of cases continues to rise, and as we gather here today, it is with a heavy heart that we acknowledge the persistent issue of get refusal within our community. This is a matter that transcends individual circumstances. It is a communal concern. It is imperative that we unite to protect our children, grandchildren, relatives, and friends, and work tirelessly to eradicate the menace of get refusal. Our crucial measure we can take immediate is to ensure that anyone entering marriage signs a halachic prenup, whether it be the RCA prenup or the Yashar initiative, which our guest speaker, Eli Goldbaum, helped to create. These tools are essential in preventing the very injustices we seek to combat. We cannot afford to turn the blind eye to the suffering of men and women who are bound by chains of injustice. It is our collective responsibility to stand up against this injustice and ensure that every individual is free to embrace new beginnings, unshackled from the burdens of their past. Let us stand together, resolute in our commitment to eradicate get refusal. Let us be the voices of change, the hands of liberation, and the guardians of justice. Together, we can create an environment where every person is free to pursue happiness without fear or coercion. As we gather here this evening, let us remember that our commitment today will shape a better tomorrow for all those affected by this issue. Let it be known that we are a community that cares deeply, one that stands together in the face of adversity, and one that will not rest until justice is served. Thank you for being here, for your support, and for your unwavering commitment to this vital cause. Together, we can make a difference. Without further ado, I am honored to introduce our first speaker, Chava Sharabani. Chava is a dedicated teacher at the Flatbush Yeshiva Elementary School and resides in Midwood, Brooklyn. She was married for 4 years and is the proud mother of 2 beautiful daughters. However, she has faced significant challenges and she has been in Agonah for the past 14 years. A little over 3 years ago, Chava's case gained widespread attention, marking the beginning of what is now the Agonah movement. This movement brought forth the powerful hashtag #FreeChava, which has resonated with many and raised awareness about the struggles faced by all Agonot. Due to her courage and the attention her case has received, several other Agonah cases have come to light and have been resolved. Unfortunately, despite these developments, Chava remains chained and unable to find closure in her own life. Chava's story serves as a poignant reminder of the urgent need for change in our community to support individuals facing similar challenges. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause to welcome Chava Sharabani to the stage.
Hi, my name is Chava Sharabani. I hope you all had a meaningful fast yesterday and that Hashem has heard our prayers and cries to release us out of this galut that we have been chained to for so many years. I know a little about being chained to a galut. I've been trapped in my own personal galut for 14 years. Let that sink in. 14 years. So much life changes in that time. Our kids grow from infants to high schoolers. Teenagers become adults, get married, and have children of their own. 14 years is a long time to be stuck to a dead marriage. Let me tell you a little about myself. I am a young, single mother of 2 beautiful daughters and a dedicated teacher at Yeshiva of Flatbush. My work as an educator brings me immense joy as I am committed to nurturing the minds of our future generation. Approximately 18 years ago, I entered a marriage with hopes and dreams and optimism of a beautiful future. However, after 4 years, it became clear that I was trapped in a toxic relationship that threatened my well-being and that of my children. After much reflection, I made the difficult decision to leave, seeking a safer environment for my family. This was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, but for the safety of my kids and myself, this was the only painful option. Although I've been legally divorced for many years, my ex-husband's refusal to grant me a get has left me in an excruciating state of limbo for the past 14 years. For over a decade and a half, I've lived without closure, unable to move forward, find love again, or have more children. I faced life's challenges alone, struggling to maintain hope and resilience. As a single mother, I have dedicated myself to creating a stable and loving environment for my daughters, and I've reaped the nachat of watching them grow up to be healthy and happy teenagers despite their situation. However, the ongoing absence of a get has prevented me from fully moving on and finding the peace and fulfillment I so deeply desire. The impact of these 14 years has been profound, affecting every aspect of my life. Each day I have faced the emotional and practical repercussions of being trapped in a marital limbo. To this community and the Jewish nation at large, I would like you to remember that being in Aguna is hard, harder than anything you can ever imagine. Things you take for granted are my constant worry. Managing basic financial survival is a constant struggle. Meeting everyday expenses like grocery shopping and the cost of Shabbat and Yom Tov are even harder. The idea of affording a camp for my children is simply out of my financial reach. Yet what do I do when my 15-year-old, who comes home wanting to be like all the other girls in her class that are going to camp? With no get in sight, the future remains bleak, leaving me uncertain about how to navigate the ongoing challenges and provide for my family's needs and aspirations. To my ex-husband, I make a public plea. We're both human. We've made mistakes. And although reconciliation is impossible, I ask for forgiveness and a clean slate for our children's sake. I ask for the opportunity to move forward with dignity so we can both be present for our daughters as they grow and navigate their own paths. Our daughters are maturing quickly, and soon they will be stepping into their own journeys, leaving high school, going on to seminary, and eventually getting married. I implore my ex-husband and his family to grant me a kosher Jewish divorce, providing our children with the stability and closure they deserve. Please reach out to me or the LEV organization so that we can work through our differences and together create a brighter future for our family. I now want to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to the LEV organization for everything you have done. The LEV organization has been by my side through thick and thin, and I truly appreciate your unwavering support. Your commitment to reaching out to my ex and his family from various angles demonstrates your dedication to fostering understanding in my difficult plight. Thank you for being such a fantastic organization. Your hard work and compassion do not go unnoticed, and I am truly grateful for everything you do. Thank you for everyone here tonight for listening to my story and the story of every other aguna in Klal Israel stuck in this painful galut. Thank you.
Wow, Chava, that was amazing. I have no words. I know that sharing your story and publicly speaking is very difficult for you, something that does not come easy. So I truly admire your courage. Your words are heartfelt and deeply touching. With God's help, I pray that you receive a call soon so we can work together on bringing a peaceful resolution and an end to everyone's suffering. Your strength and resilience shine a light on the importance of this cause, and I hope that your journey leads to the closure and peace you deserve. Thank you once again for opening up and for your unwavering spirit. It is now my distinct honor to introduce one of the esteemed leaders of the Syrian Sephardic community, Rabbi Ozeri. While Rabbi Ozeri hardly needs an introduction, I would like to share a few highlights of his remarkable contributions. Rabbi Ozeri is the founder of the Yad Yosef Torah Center, a vibrant hub of learning where you will always find countless men engaged in Torah study. His dedication to education and spiritual growth has profound impact on our community. In addition to his work at the Yad Yosef Torah Center, Rabbi Ozeri is actively involved in various charitable initiatives, tirelessly helping to raise funds and support those in need. His commitment to philanthropy reflects his deep compassion and leadership. As one of the leading scholars in our community, Rabbi Ozeri is highly respected by all, and his wisdom and guidance continue to inspire many. It is with great honor that I introduce to you Rabbi Ozeri. Please give a standing ovation for Rabbi Ozeri.
Sit down, please, sit down. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I never thought that I would be a guest speaker for an organization that is out there to, not to promote divorce, God forbid, but to be there for people who need a divorce. Why do I say that? Unfortunately, we live in a society where divorce is not frowned upon. Divorce rate today in America is soaring. There are states that the divorce rate is over 50%, 60%. You know what that means for the average American? You stand under the canopy and you exchange vows. For better, for worse, for health or sickness, for rich or for poor. Till death do us part, help me God. And you only have less than a 50% chance of making it. It's unbelievable. It's really wild. You know, I grew up in the community in Bensonhurst. I lived on a block which was predominantly Italians and Jews. That's who we were. And nobody got a divorce. It was unheard of. We as children growing up, you never heard the word divorce. One time, we used to sleep in the summertime with the windows open because it was so hot. Nobody had air conditioning. And you had screens on your window. And one time I was a little boy. I could have been, 10, 11 years old. And my room faced the driveway. It was a shared driveway with another two-family house. And I heard screaming, and I woke up. And I look at the window, and there's my neighbor Tony, down on one knee with his wife from the second floor screaming at him to get out of here and never come back because he didn't come home that night. And she's tossing all his clothes out the window. And I was really affected, and he's begging Maria to come back in. Get out of here, I don't want you no more. By the end of the day, he was back home in the house. That's the way it was. Your parents fought and fought and fought, but nobody got divorced. You went down the aisles with your children. You went down the aisle with your grandchildren. And that's the way it was. Today, it's very, very different. A girl went on a blind date, and she came home, and her mother asked how it was. She says, I don't know, Ma, I'm wondering, is this the man I want my children to spend every other weekend with or not? That's what it is today. It's really something not to be believed. Our children go into to the town where you go in to get a marriage license, yeah, and they have to fill out a marriage form. Did you ever see this marriage form? It says, if you are divorced, please fill out to who and when the divorce was. There's 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines. Then there's a star. You look on the bottom, it says, if you need more space, please see the clerk. It's what happened to us. Prenuptial agreements, which we're going to speak about tonight. There was no such thing. God forbid, a prenuptial may mean that, hey, we may not make it, so let's take care of our interests right now. I was walking to my car one day, and there was a flyer on the car. I thought it was a ticket. I walk over in Brooklyn, Kings Highway. Divorce, $169. Contact us, a lawyer's firm. Could you imagine such a thing? How do we prevent this terrible plague, which has already infested our people, even in our own community? I once called up a dayan, a rabbinical judge, to arrange for a divorce. And I said, it's imperative that we get it right away. We're afraid the fellow is going to run away. So he says, I've been trying to contact all the scribes that write the gittin, the gets, and no one's open for the next 2 weeks. Nobody has a slot. Could you imagine? They could write 3, 4, maximum 5 gittin a day, and nobody has a slot for 2 weeks. It's really, really horrifying of what's going on today, okay? So what do? We have to understand, like we just heard, that divorce is really not a viable solution to your problems. Certainly not for your children. It's really a tragedy. You know, it says that when somebody gets divorced, the Mizbeach cries. The Mizbeach cries. Firstly, we have to understand and accept and appreciate that your spouse is the right one. You know, there are 2 pesukim in the Torah. They are very, very contradictory. One pasuk says, Matzah isha matzah tov. I found a wife, I found goodness. The other pasuk says, Motzeh ani mar mimavet et isha. I found something more bitter than death, the woman. One says, Matzah isha matzah tov. I found goodness. The other one says, no, I found death. How do we reconciliate these 2 pesukim? And I once heard Rabbi Miller say, Matzah isha matzah tov. Matzah is a lashon of finding. Matzah means I found something which is mine. When I get married and I look at my wife and I say, this is the one, there's nobody else. She belongs to me. She's my better half. There's nothing any better. That's matzah tov. You found goodness. You found your find. Motzeh ani iman mimavet. I found something more bitter than death. Motzeh is a lashon, is a terminology of searching, seeking. If somebody gets married and says, oh, I married her, but I'm still looking. Is this the right one? Maybe I should have married the other one. Maybe I shouldn't got married. Maybe I should have waited. That's more bitter than death. So the first thing we have to know when we get married, it's matzah isha matzah tov. I found my find. This is the right one, and there's nobody else, and I have to make it work. And that's the way our parents were, and that's the way our grandparents were. I asked a man from Syria, how many divorces were there in Syria? He says, there was never, ever a divorce. I said, what? He says, actually, there was 1 divorce. In all the years that they lived in Syria, in the last 100 years, but not because they didn't get along, because of sickness. Fine. He says there was one man that used to come to the Beit Din every week. The Beit Din used to sit in Syria and Halab every week, once a week. And there was a man that used to come every week, and he says, I want a divorce. Give me a get. And they would tell him, come back next week. He came back every week for 27 years, but he was never granted the divorce. Okay? That's the way it was. Plain and simple. So what is it? How do we do it? How do we stay married and put this organization out of business? That's what we want, and that's what the founders of this organization want. How do we do it? Well, we first have to know that, I want to ask you a question, by the way. Typical American gets married. Within a short time, he may be divorced. A year, 2 years, maybe less. Wait a minute, 1 minute. They dated for 4 years or more before they got married. So how'd this happen? Okay. You have to understand something. When you go into a marriage, it has to be to give, not to take. And most people go into a marriage to take, not to give. And then they have this big disappointment that my spouse wants me to give. And it's a very, very big disappointment in life. And that starts the cycle. You know this gift giving that we have before we get married? Swannies. Ladies and gentlemen, I went to a Swanny one time. I thought it was a Chinese auction. I was looking for the boxes. Okay. So these two kids get married, and before they get married, they give and they give and they give and they give and they give. And then once they get married, the gift giving stops, and somewhat of a disappointment there. And that's when it starts. I have to go into a marriage to give, not to take. By the way, how do you know giving is better than taking? When you give, you end up loving that person. How do you know? You have children? Do they make you crazy? They say insanity is hereditary. You get it from your kids. Junior could drive you crazy. And the principal's calling you every other day. And he comes home and he kills his siblings. And you don't know what to do with him. But guess what? You love him. Why do you love him? Throw him out. You know why you love him? Because you've been giving him from the day he's born. And the more you give, the more you love the person. So if you go into a marriage to give and not take, okay, most probably you will succeed in your marriage. No question about it. The major cause for a soaring divorce rate is because old-time Shalom Bayit was constantly to give, not to take. Today, things have changed. We live in a very selfish society, and our children are surrounded by this. And with the social media that's going on out there, okay, it's terrible. We don't know how to respect the spouse. This is what's going on. You know, there was a great rabbi, the chief rabbi of Jerusalem in the 1930s, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. So a man came over to him and he asked him, are you allowed to drink coffee before prayer in the morning? He said, yes. He says, well, why don't you do it? He says, because if my wife would know that I drink coffee early in the morning when she's sleeping, she'll get up earlier than me to make me the coffee. So therefore, I don't drink coffee. That's a marriage. That is a marriage. And I'm going to conclude with one story from the Tanakh. There was an Ish Sadiq by the name of Ovadia. The Tanakh brings down the story. And he was an administrator in the royal house. Good. And there was a couple by the name of Ahav, a king who was wicked, who was married to a witch by the name of Izebel. And Izebel decided that she wants to kill all the prophets. And she was killing them, and there was hundreds of prophets. Her husband, Ovadia, took 100 prophets, put his life in danger, and hid them in 2 different caves. And he supported them. And he brought them food and water every day. He brought them oil so they could sit and study Torah. Yeah? And this Ovadia spent his entire life savings on supporting these 100 prophets. It got to a point where he depleted his entire life savings. After that, he started selling his furniture and his belongings, and his wife sold her jewelry, and she was in on this with him. And then he had no choice but to borrow money. He had nothing left. And he went to a wicked man, and he borrowed money from this wicked man who charged him large interest. And he got sick from it. And he didn't know what to do. The time was coming to pay the man back, and he didn't have the money. He got so sick, he ended up on his deathbed. And he was dying. And his wife went crying to him. And she was crying and crying. She said, "You can't die on me now. What am I going to do if you die? How am I going to pay back the debt?" And he said that Ribono Shel Olam, God is Avi Yetomim v'Dayan Albanot. God is the judge of all orphans and widows. And he died leaving her with nothing. The wicked man Yehoram came to her to collect the debt. And he said to her, "If I don't have the money in a few days, I'm going to take your 2 sons as slaves." And he was powerful enough to do that. She didn't know what to do. She went to the cemetery and she went to her husband's grave and she cried and she cried and she said, "You told me God is Avi Yetomim v'Dayan Almanot. He's going to take our 2 sons slaves. What am I to do?" A bat call, a voice came out from heaven and told her, "Go to Elisha the Navi and he will help you." She went to Elisha the Navi and she cried her eyes out. She wept bitter tears. And he said to her, "What do you have in your home? What do you own?" And she said, "En l'shivchatech kol babayit." Your maidservant has nothing in the house, ki im asoch shemen, except one little pach of shemen, a little pitcher of oil. That's all I own. He said, "Good. Go to all the neighbors and borrow all their pots and vases and urns and anything that could hold liquid. And take that one small flask of oil you have and pour it in all of them. Don't stop. And keep getting more and more vessels." Okay? In those days, as crazy as it sounds, they used to listen to the rabbi. Okay? She went home. And she told her son, "Go borrow from all the neighbors pots and pans and vases and urns." And whatever. She laid them all out, and she took the one little out, and she poured oil and oil and oil and oil. She told her, and he told her, "Don't stop." And she told her sons, "Go get more pots." The entire apartment was full of oil. Okay, that was it. It was over. The Navi told her, "Go and sell the oil, pay back the debt, and keep the change to support yourself." The oil that day shot up in price. She went and sold it. She was able to sell all the oil and have enough money to live for the rest of her life after she paid the debt. Why did that happen? Why did that miracle happen to her? Because her husband and wife were a team. They were a team. And when you're a team, ish v'isha shezachu, a husband and wife that have shalom bayit, Shekhinah b'neihem, the Shekhinah lives amongst them. The divine presence lives amongst them. And God will be willing to do miracles for you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is tough. This organization is tough. It's tough. It's heart-wrenching. Sean, where is he? He must have called me about 150 times till I ever came to the phone. I said, "What do you mean you have an organization to divorce people? Leave me alone. I'm not interested. Get out of here." Then he called me, wait, don't hang up. "We got a few agonot again." I said, "You did what?" "Now you're talking." He got some agonot with him and Mr. Ashkenazi. They got agonot, some gitin. "I'm in. Tell me what you want." I don't even know his last name. I just met Mr. Ashkenazi. All as I know is these tzaddikim, these angels, are helping women get divorced so they could remarry and have a marriage like we were just talking about. Okay? This is something unbelievable. I would love if they had in their organization a department for reconciliation. Do you have that? To attempt to try and get them to stay together. Get them therapists. Get them whatever you need, psychologists, psychiatrists. Throw the crazy husband in a rehab. Do whatever you have to do to try and keep them together. Okay, but when there's no choice and you need to, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in this field for 40 years. I worked with many agunot, and we succeeded in getting some of them gitin. It's a living hell, you'll excuse me, for the aguna and for the people that are trying to get them gitin. This is something which is heart-wrenching. You lose sleep. I don't know if these men sleep at night. Okay, you lose sleep over it. What, one of you married to one of them? Okay, your son, okay. It's, God bless them. And God bless this organization. And like I said, we want to put them out of business. The way to put them out of business is to get people to stay married. Okay, when possible. And Be'ezrat Hashem, if we do that, first of all, we have to help them. I don't know, you need to fundraise? They need to fundraise. They need money for this. I'm sure you have lawyers involved, other people involved. What? I'll help them. I told you. We'll help them. You bring me people that are getting agunot divorces, we'll help them. Okay? We'll help them. They need help. They need money. They need support. Whatever it is. I mean, I was like shooken up this week. I'm seeing posters with my picture all over it about help people get. Okay? It's a little hard. It's a little tough. I'm supporting marriages my whole life. Trying to keep people there. But this is what it's come to. Lo alenu. We want to bring back the old days when nobody gets divorced. Fight and stay married. Stay married. Okay? Be'ezrat Hashem. With God's help, and Hashem's going to help them because they work l'shem shamayim. Be'ezrat Hashem. We'll come to the day where we'll make a sudat hoda'ah, the day we have to close this organization, and every woman who needs a get, only who needs a get, will have a get, and they'll be able to go on with their lives, rebuild their lives, get married again, and be happily ever after. Amen.
Amen to what the rabbi said. We would like to be out of business, and this problem does not exist. Thank you, Rabbi, for your inspiring words and for being here tonight with us. Your support means the world to us and to the entire community. I would also like to ask everyone to please keep the rabbi's son, Yosef ben Batya, in your prayers. May he experience a full and speedy refuah shelema. Your prayers during this time are greatly appreciated, and they truly make a difference. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
I now have the pleasure of introducing to you to our next speaker, Eli Goldbaum. Eli has been a prominent figure in the long-term healthcare industry since 1987. As the president and CEO of FHS Consultants, LLC, along with several other healthcare entities, Eli is widely recognized for his influential role in the field. His expertise and insight are regularly sought after by professionals looking for guidance in healthcare-related matters. In addition to his work in healthcare, Eli is a founding member of the Yashar Coalition, an organization dedicated to minimizing the pain associated with divorce in our community and promoting marital harmony. Several years ago, the coalition developed a halachic prenup agreement, which has received haskamot, which is endorsements from the foremost gedolim of our time. Eli actively mediates divorce cases, counsels couples on shalom bayit, and has recently introduced a comprehensive marriage curriculum aimed at young couples. Eli also serves on the board of several yeshivot and community organizations, further demonstrating his commitment to strengthening our community and supporting its growth. His multifaceted contributions make him a valuable resource and leader in both the healthcare and community sector. Please welcome Eli Goldbaum.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here at the LEV organization. My good friend Steve, my good friend Sean, and the rest of the team that I had the privilege to meet in some home here. I think it was your home. And my good friend Elliot Shelby, who is my classmate from way back when. I just have to give two shout-outs. One to Danny Cohen and his wife, who drove me here from Brooklyn, so thank you. And the other, Sheila, who came special from Brooklyn, used to work for me 17 years ago or more, and she came special, so I thank you for that. It's such an honor to be part of an organization that is working on focusing from for having people turn pain into peace. That is my entire life. It has become my life, and I'll explain to you what I've done and why I've gotten into this arena. I wanted to start, I think it's imperatively important to start off with a disclaimer. Before I start speaking about anything, there are people in this room who have gone or going through divorces, and the last thing I want to do is to say something that someone's going to take the wrong way, as if I'm judging them, which is something that I find as a community, it's something we could learn from in general. These people that are going through this don't want to be judged. No one's in their shoes. No one understands them. So we have to be careful that whatever I'm talking about is in general, we speak about divorce and what we could do better. That doesn't mean that someone who's going through it could have done it better. And that's really my point. I just was listening to Rabbi Azeri speak, and my heart is exactly where Rabbi Azeri's heart is. I wish we can come up here and say there should be no divorce. I was actually driving with the Cohens. They were talking about, I don't understand, what's the big deal? You have such an issue, just, figure out how to get along with one another. And I wish I could say that. But the reality is, most people that are healthy think like that. And most people in the world are actually healthy people, which is the good thing. I would say that whatever our divorce rate is, and let's say it's 6%, 8%, 10%, I hope it's not that high. But that means that there's 90+% of people that are happily married. And that's what our real focus is. As Rabbi Azeri said, I hope the LEV organization goes out of business, but that's why, as Steve so nicely said, I'm working on other things as well. I have this prenuptial agreement. I work on shalom bayis. I work on divorce mediation. And I also have a marriage curriculum to make good marriages great. So I'm in business no matter what you do. Because that's what we have to do. We have to keep good marriages great. So on the topic of pathways to peace and supporting those in need, I think we have to focus on, why there are so many more divorces today. What could we do? How could we agree to disagree when there is a need to figure out, and I will say the first thing I do as a mediator is always talk, is there a way to save this marriage? And sometimes, believe it or not, there is. And when I'm standing in front of you, and I know there's someone shaking their head in front of me, and that's fine, I have thankfully saved quite a bit of marriages. Those are the ones that I take, and I say those are the pride that I work on. I also thankfully have helped many people get divorced, because I understand from a very personal way the divorce realm, and the reason I got into divorce is my own daughter got divorced 12 years ago. And I said at the time, there has to be a better way to go through a divorce. And by educating people and educating communities, what I'm hoping to do is to get out this message. There's a peaceful way to go through divorce. As Rabbi Azeri said before, the concept of what it does to families, people do not understand. It is destroying families. It is destroying not only the wife or the husband, it's destroying the children, it's destroying parents, it's destroying siblings. It is destructive. And us as a community, that's what I'm focusing on. How could we as a community maybe do things differently that we don't have this destruction, we minimize this destruction? And if I'm successful in 50% of the cases, that's a huge accomplishment. I hope to be successful in 80% of the cases, 90% of the cases. We're not going to be 100% perfect. But what's so bad if we had 80%, 90%? Let's figure out as a community, how do we do this better? How do we go ahead and not kill one another? There's enough people in this world that want us killed. Why do we have to kill one another? Let's try to figure out a better way. And these are the things that we were working on, and I'm going to try to explain to you the idea of the prenuptial agreement, explain to you some of the things that I experience daily. I do not really work anymore. My partners are not going to be happy. I do not work anymore in my business. I spend just about my entire day, thanks to the LEV organization and other organizations and people who send me cases to mediate. I do not charge for my time. This is not a money-making thing for me. On the contrary, I've spent in the tens and tens of thousands of dollars working on these type of agreements, advertising, etc. And I'm happy to do it. Thankfully, Hashem has blessed me and has given me the ability to do it. So the people that we worked with on the creating of this prenuptial agreement, the concept was everyone that worked on this agreement was a volunteer. There were Rabbanim, there were professionals, there were Tayanim, which is the attorneys that represent in a Bezdin. Sorry, I'm jumping back and forth from Sephardi and Ashkenaz. I'm sticking to Ashkenaz, sorry. Rabbi Azari speaks in my shul sometimes in Boston for Egan Sheretari. He speaks Sephardi, so we enjoy that, so hopefully you'll enjoy the other way around. So, they know all the games. They know all the tricks. And what we were trying to do is find an agreement that is halachically acceptable across the board to every single community, wherever it is, whichever rabbis you have who are going to say, this agreement is okay halachically. There is an agreement that was mentioned before by the RCA, the Bezdin of America. I'm very close to Rabbi Willig. We spoke to Rabbi Willig. I'm not here against the RCA agreement. I'm not talking halacha. I'm talking very simple. For whatever reason, I know the reasons, but that's something that it's not for tonight. Why there are communities that do not accept the RCA agreement, to make it an halachically acceptable agreement. And our focus was, and we worked with the Gedolim of America to figure out what are the intricate details of halacha to allow it to go into agreement, and we want an agreement that's acceptable across the board. And we've gotten the acceptance from every single major place today in America and in Eretz Yisrael. I thank Rabbi Uzeri, actually, who brought me to a meeting with a bunch of Rabbanim. He forgot about it, I reminded him. But there was a meeting with a bunch of Rabbanim, and we presented the agreement at the meeting. And I actually became very famous. I just reminded Rabbi Uzeri about it. At that meeting, it was in Harry Ashmi's house. And Rabbi Zeri was sitting right next to me, and Harry Ashmi was sitting right next to him, and I'm sitting like sort of at the edge of the table, and there was a door right behind me. At that point, one of the first gittin that a lady got after 17 years, she had just received her get, and she walked into the meeting, and she literally walked right behind me. So I wasn't going to sit there with her talking over my head, so I stood up, and I stood to the side. So Rabbi Zeri is here, the lady is right next to me, and of course, they took videos of it, and it went viral. And I started getting all kinds of texts. Eli, you're amazing. You got this lady get after 17 years. So I got a lot of credit for it, and I appreciate it. But putting that aside, at the meeting, they told me, you have to go to Chacham Asher. He's the one you have to meet. And I sat with him that night. For the first 45 minutes, I did not get one word in. He told me everything he has a problem with prenuptial agreements. And I'm not exaggerating. 45 minutes, I did not say one word. And I said, Hashem, just put the words in my mouth. How am I going to convince him? I explained to him the agreement. I left his house at 11:15 at night on a Sunday night. He called me up the next day, Monday at 2 o'clock. And I remember the time. I remember what he said. I don't know. I'll have to translate it because he actually spoke Yiddish to me. He said to me, Eli, I sat last night. I read your agreement 5 times. I was nishtaimim from this agreement, which means I was astounded from this agreement. He said, I woke up this morning with a frischkeit, which means I woke up fresh. I want to read this agreement. I'm blown away by your agreement. And by 2 o'clock the next day, I had a glowing haskama acceptance on his part of this agreement. I'll give you the website if anyone wants it. This agreement is available free of charge, can be downloaded. It's called the Yashar Coalition. Yashar means straight, Y-A-S-H-A-R, coalition.org. Anyone wants, we'll give it to them later. It's all the information, all our scammers, the agreement, it's all online. It's here free of charge. No one's charging for it. Why not use it? So just quickly, to go through some of the points of the agreement, I have a lot to talk about. I was given a time frame, so I'm going to try to stick to getting the main points that I want to get across that could help the community. I think it's important to realize nobody gets married thinking they're getting divorced. It's fair to say everyone, as we heard before, she got up, spoke nicely about her dreams. She got married thinking she's going to have this great life. This is a simple agreement that if God forbid something goes wrong, and one of the things Rabbi Zeri said, I'm going to just say that the agreement we feel, and Rabbi David, Rahul David, who's one of the poskim that signed on, who's one of the first ones that worked with me, said to me, I believe that we are going to save marriages by using this agreement. And I'll explain to you why we feel this way. What happens is typical agreements, and this is something I want to talk about a little later in the idea of the mediation. What happens in a typical, this family issues that are going on, it's a little strife, the family, a little fighting, whatever the story is, and all of a sudden, everyone in the community, people, they start talking. It's the newest hawk of the town. Everyone's going to talk about this family. This is what's going on. Did you hear what's going on by there? Did you hear what's going on? It's terrible. Did you hear what they said? And all of a sudden, everyone's talking about it. The challenge of all these cases, initially, is to get the two people to agree to go to somebody. It's myself, Rabbi Azeri, a Bezdin, a court. Well, court we don't want to go to. We'll put that aside. We'll talk about that later. But somebody who could help deal with it in a responsible way. And the concept is, if we deal with it responsibly, there's a chance, and a much better chance, that if there's a way to deal with it in a shalom bayis way, which means to work on the marriage before everyone makes it into the newest forest fire that we have to contain, which is impossible, then there's a chance, if there is a possibility to work on the shalom bayis, like Rabbi Zeri says, I'm on fast speed dial with the relief organization, which helps get proper therapists for all kinds of people. If we have the ability to get into dealing with the problem of the marriage before it became that forest fire, there's a good chance that we have at least a possibility of saving the marriage. And if not, like we said before, Steve stole my line, it's shalom bayis or shalom divorce, but let's do it in peace. For the sake of these children, as mentioned so many times, I've seen the damage to children. What do children want? Think about it. What do children want? Stability, love, care. People are telling me, I deal with this day in and day out. People are coming to me, I'm doing this for the children. Baloney. You're destroying your children. People don't realize what they're doing to their kids. They're destroying. These kids have to get married. We're going to the street with all this garbage. Then later on, someone's checking into them for marriage. They're saying, did you hear about that case? Oh, yes, stay away. That, what the allegations were, who knows what. Is that what we really want as a community? So the concept that we're talking about of trying to find a unified place where both sides mutually agree to come and to deal with it, we believe is going to save marriages if it's done properly. More importantly, and I think this is an important point that I've been asked about very often, about the differences between our prenuptial agreement and the other ones. I'm not even talking about halachically acceptable prenup. I think the concept that we're talking about, that I have a challenge trying to explain to people. My agreement that we worked very hard with the Gedolim on is a very simple agreement. It is a gender-neutral agreement. Of course, we want to get gittin. That's part of a divorce process. The get is one part of the process. The entire agreement is a second part of the process. It's good to get the get, but if you don't have an agreement, that's also no good, and vice versa. So we have to work together on getting the people to a good place of a Bezdin who is a trustworthy Bezdin, who could sit and work through whatever it takes. It's negotiations, but you work through it in a healthy way. And if you could do something like that, it's not looked at as being something that, and until now, that's one of the things that I hear about the RCA agreement. People feel that it's an anti-men agreement. This is not an anti-men agreement. You can go through the agreement that's online. It's there to protect the sanctity of the family, that the family can move on in a healthy way. No one's saying that everyone has to sign the agreement. Of course, it'd be great if people do sign the agreements, but I beg people initially, I deal with this on a daily basis, not only the marriages, How many times I meet couples before they get married? There are already issues before they got married. They may be kids at risk, or whatever, I hate the term, but whatever it is, kids that are not doing the norm, that maybe had some issues or whatever it is, second marriages, I call them higher risk marriages. If it's a higher risk marriage, it's imperative that we put some kind of protection. What's the worst case? God forbid something happens, they have a healthy place to go, and maybe the case doesn't blow up, and maybe it's not. Again, I'm not going to save every case, but if we save 50% of these cases that are difficult, 70%, 80%, that's a tremendous accomplishment. The idea of the prenuptial agreement is you don't need to serve hazmanas to bezdin. It becomes a whole challenge when the people send a hazman is basically you're asking someone to come to this particular bezdin. The way it works, you don't have to go to that bezdin. You go to a different bezdin. It becomes a whole charade and a whole game. This is basically a very strong binding arbitration agreement that binds you before the marriage to go. We had to go to an agreed upon bezdin. We had a few years ago a Tisha B'Av video. I had Charlie Harari speak, and he spoke brilliantly. He said this concept. We're asking someone to sign an agreement when their mind is there. You're happy, you got engaged, everyone's happy, you're thinking. The second is there's some kind of contention in the marriage, the mind shuts down and it becomes an emotional thing. You can't get two people to agree on anything. So let's do this when we are happy, everyone's happy. Sign the agreement, put it away, and I give a bracha, no one should ever need it. Put it away. It's a concept that we buy life insurance. Does anyone want to die? Why are we buying life insurance? Why do we buy homeowners insurance? Why do we buy auto insurance? We buy it not because we ever want to use it, but if God forbid something happens, we have protection. This is marriage insurance. It's free. Don't ever use it, but at least have some kind of protection. So again, that is a piece that I wanted to discuss, and that is the actual prenuptial agreement. There's a lot of detail to the agreement, and we could talk about it. You could look online. It explains the agreement and what's involved with the agreement. I'll be happy to talk to anyone afterwards if anyone has any questions. I want to go through the next piece, and that is what I learned from doing mediation and potentially what we as a community, as I mentioned, could do differently, that we could help our friends, our families, if someone is going through a marital conflict, how could we as a community help them that we don't blow this case up to be the next case to potentially become someone waiting for years and years to unfortunately get a get and a divorce. And like I said before, if it's done properly at the beginning, just think for a second about a fire. If I have a small fire, I take a fire extinguisher, I can put it out. If it becomes a forest fire, I can't get it out. I have to first get it to a more contained environment so I can go ahead and get my fire out. Get some fire extinguisher, firemen, and get it out. Most cases that I get, certainly from the LEV organization, by the time they came to me, they're fighting for 4 years, 5 years, or longer. People think, and I have to say this, court system is the worst place to be. People think, and sometimes you have no choice, but they think that the court system is a fair system. I was just on the way here. I got a call from a woman. She's crying to me. She's in the system for 4 years. She can't even get a trial date. She's being tortured every single day. The cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I beg people when we do mediation, use that money better to just settle. That's not always so simple, obviously. I understand that. But people think, and I hear this in my office, if I'm not going to get this, I'm going to court. Okay, you'll be back at my desk in 3 years, 4 years, and I don't even know if I can get you out in 3-4 years. It takes the other side to agree to go out. It takes the other side to agree to mediate. That was the phone call on the way here. How do I get my husband to come to your office to mediate? That was the call. And I get this day in and day out. If we can go ahead and just give that message to people in the community, we mean well. We're sitting here, we're friends, and we're family. We hear our friends, our families going through a divorce, and they go ahead and they say, this is happening, and that's not fair, and I get this all the time. I say, people, you have to be practical. Of course, your emotions are saying she's entitled to this. I get this all the time from attorneys. They're entitled to this. I say to the attorneys, tell me, how often does a person get what they're entitled to? Do you want to sign on the dotted line and guarantee your client they're going to get what they're entitled to? And of course, the attorneys inevitably turn to me and say, I can't promise that. It depends on the judge. I said, so you're not being honest with your client. Of course you're not being honest. The more I bill you, the more I make. Just be honest with your client. Do you understand what a court fight takes? You have to be able to sit through 4 years, 5 years. A lot of the women, more than the men, but even some of the men, they don't have the emotional strength to go through a court battle. And they get worn down, and then they call me and say, just get me out of it. People mean well by telling them, go ahead and go do the fight. But there's a consequence to the fight. How many times have I heard from people, we started a court, my attorney started whatever it was, the first thing they did is they put out a restraining order against the spouse. I'm not saying there are times for restraining orders. 90% of the time I say this to a couple, all of a sudden, I don't really need the restraining order. I explain to them, there's a consequence to it. You put out a restraining order if the guy or the girl is such a problem, of course, you have no choice. Your safety, your family, your safety yourself is important. But if you realize that the consequence may be that you're going to suffer for years because of it, maybe it's not so smart to do the restraining order. And I'll give you a case that I had recently, and it just shows you how sometimes the difference of doing something up front could make the difference of saving a marriage or destroying a couple. And I have to change, obviously, some of the points, but I'm going to stick to the main idea. I got a call from somebody who's going to pick up his daughter out of town. The girl was in a hospital 3 times. Her fingers are mangled. Our initial reaction is restraining order, get this terrible, you can't ever let this girl go back. And I spoke to the father and I asked him, tell me a little about your daughter. And he tells me she really is somebody who suffers. She's not the typical girl. She has some serious issues. And I said to him, you know, you're going to pick up your child. They have 3 children. You're bringing them back to your house. Why are you doing a restraining order? The second you do that restraining order, this marriage is finished. Well, I was told if I don't do it and it goes to a divorce, then this is going to happen, that's going to happen. I said, it's nonsense. If you ever have to do a restraining order, you'll do a restraining order. Right now, your child is safe. You're taking them back to your house. And I said to him, obviously, if you tell me this is about your daughter, this is the type of girl she is, there must be something with your son-in-law. What's the story with him? And he told me what his shortcomings were. I said, just realize that the chance of your daughter, and it's a very painful thing for me to say to somebody, but I said, just realize that the decision you're making now will potentially keep your daughter to be single for the rest of her life, even if she gets a divorce. She's very limited. She has 3 children. They need a tremendous amount of support, emotionally. Think twice before you do something that can maybe destroy her. But at the same time, we have to do this healthy. To make a long story short, I met the couple, and they both had their serious challenges. The husband had a serious issue as a child. Again, I have to be careful what I'm going to say. But we got them to the proper professionals. And we made sure that the woman was given her own therapist to make sure that she's protected, that no one goes ahead and puts them into a situation that's dangerous. They found out because of his issue, a specific medication would work, and it was something that he didn't even realize he was doing. She ended up getting proper therapy. Within 3 months, this couple was back together. And I'm telling you, the father of this girl was traumatized when I met him. And I understood that trauma. But with proper help, and I'm not saying this happens all the time, it's a nice story, it's a nice ending. And I got a text from them literally yesterday thanking me. The girl texted me, thanking you for saving my marriage. So there's no question about it. And my point is not that we're going to save every marriage. My point is doing things properly could make the difference between saving a marriage, saving a divorce, or blowing it up to be the next case. And I think that as a community, I talk about something called TMI. Too much information. How many times, I remember this happened to me about 15 years ago. I was walking in the street, a friend of mine, I know this whole family, this was not a divorce, this was a family issue, a lot of money. A guy comes over to me and he starts giving me all this information about his family. I'm thinking afterwards, like, why did this guy come over to me with all this information? It's just too much information, information overload. And afterwards, I scratched my head and I realized, if he really cares about his siblings, do you think he would talk like that? Do you think he'd give you all this information? Obviously, there's more to the story. And Rav David Cohen and Rav Flapish told me years ago, in his brilliant, brilliant way of thinking, he said, when people talk, it's like pointing a finger. When you point the finger, there's one finger pointing this way, there's three fingers pointing back at you. Think about that. When people talk, very often there's a lot more to the story, a lot of guilt going on. Think about that. So when someone's giving you too much information, don't feed it. We as a community have to cut it down. We can't continue to feed. You like that one? You can't continue to feed the people that like to stir the pot, because when they stir the pot, that's where the fights happen. And if we as a community could stop that, I believe that will save a lot of people. How much? Okay, so I'm going to just end with I do have a list of many reasons why there are more divorce. People ask me this all the time. Why do we have so much more divorce? There are a lot of reasons for it. Unfortunately, the world is changing. It's a changing world. I'm not making it right. I'm not making it wrong. But this is the unfortunate reality of what we're dealing with. Rabbi Azeri brought it up before. The concept of social media certainly is out there. There are a lot of mental health issues that weren't here in the past. The awareness of it, no question, the stigma of divorce is taken off. So unfortunately, we have to deal with that reality. But that doesn't mean we have to give into it. We still can go ahead and try our best as a community to try to work to maintain peace in the community, not to allow these cases to blow up. And if we do that, we're not going to save every case. But if we save 50%, 60%, 70% or more, we've done a tremendous amount. My bracha to everyone here is that by just talking about the concepts of keeping peace, maintaining peace, everyone should have peace in their homes. We should only see bracha and nachas from all of our families. Thank you for having me. Have a good night.
Thank you, Eli. That was incredible insight, and I hope the audience was able to gain valuable knowledge from your presentation. I know there are countless topics you could cover, and you could easily speak for another 2 hours if we had the time. We're now going to transition into a quick question and answer session with Eli. I'd like to invite Caroline Corman to please take one of the microphones, and everyone could ask their questions.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, rabbis. My name is Caroline Kornman, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I've been working with the women and the LEV organization this whole year. And although it sounds glorious, what everyone is talking about with marriages, it's not the reality. I mean, even, I have to tell you, my Jiddah, Chacham Yaakov Kassin, the original chief rabbi of our community, I asked my father, when I got involved with this organization, I asked my father, what would Jiddah say? How did he handle this? How did he help the women? How did he help the families? And I remember my father said that he remembers all his life that couples used to come into their home and they would be fighting, and he would hear it. All of them, they would hear it. And my father said that my Jiddah used to try for hours and hours and hours to try to help the couple. Sometimes he didn't succeed. So my sitar would take over, and then they would walk out of the house arm in arm. I mean, that's just something so sweet. And another thing, Rabbi Azeri, what you said about to give and not, my father also, when my kids were getting married, he said something like that. That was his beracha. He would tell my kids, go into the marriage giving. Don't worry about taking, just give. think of what can I give my spouse versus what can my spouse give me. But the reality is it's not glorious. The women are suffering, they're in pain. They want to end this whole thing and they want their guests. And that's the reality. So I'm here tonight for questions. Who has questions?
Can't believe the room is silent. No one has that question. For Ellie, the rabbi.
Well, I have a couple of questions that came into me. One of the women asked me to ask some questions, so I address it to the rabbi. She wants to know, again, this goes to my judo. My judo made an edict of we don't accept converts because we're going to have so many problems in the community, so why bring, this is what my father said, why bring others into the community where we're going to have so many problems of our own, that he predicted this. So Rabbi, one of the questions was, if my judo made the edict for converts, not to accept converts, are we able to make some sort of edict where if the guy doesn't give the girl the get in whatever years that he's out, type of a thing, that you'll grant it?
These people that are get refusers, already in the community, they're somewhat ostracized. They don't get aliyah in the shuls. A lot of them move away. The rabbis have talking themselves blue to these people. Everybody knows who they are. We saw a number of years ago that there was protests outside their homes. Whatever can be done is trying to get done. But you're dealing with a very, very difficult person. Anybody who wants to deny his wife a get is an extremely, extremely difficult, abnormal person. And whatever can be done is being done behind the scenes. This organization right here, rabbis getting involved. Sometimes it's money. I want money. You want $50,000? You want $100,000? We'll get him the money, okay, if that's what it takes. I'm not kidding you. We'll get him the money if that's what it takes. But you're dealing with a very, very difficult type of person.
Okay, good enough.
Can I just add one thing?
Absolutely.
My personal feeling from dealing with most of these people, it's nekama, revenge. And when it's revenge, no matter what you want, they're going to continue to push and push and push because it's revenge. They don't want to settle. That's been my experience.
Right, makes sense. I mean, makes sense. Anyone else have any questions? This is the time to ask. Please. 1 second. What's your name?
How do you...
Stand up. Stand up. Yes,
Yeah.
stand up.
You're going to discourage us from asking questions.
What's the question?
No, I just wanted to know, how do you enforce the pre-up?
Perfect
Like, let's say
question.
you need it to use it. You signed it before you got married. So now what happens
It's
next?
enforceable in court. It's an absolute...
Like
it's-
American court? Or
It's
like,
yes, absolutely.
like
It's
legal
a
binding
legal binding arbitration agreement. It's basically a glorified legal binding arbitration agreement. Obviously, we have more halachic things that we put into the agreement. But if the person is not following the agreement, the arbitration panel, which is the Bezdin, has the powers to give awards, and those awards are enforceable in court. If they're not going to listen to the court, then they're not going to listen to the court if you go to court either. But these are, if you have, again, I think Rabbi Zeri mentioned it before, we're working very clearly. We believe that a large percentage, whether it's 90%, 80%, 85%, whichever number you want to use, is probably in the 90% range or higher, are not going to give you anybody problems because it's a healthy way to deal with it before it blows up. And if something, obviously there's going to be cases that are going to be problems. That's what we mentioned before. We can't, people get married to these people. We in the community, myself, as every other people who work on these cases, we're spending an enormous amount of time to try to help people extract them from these bitter marriages. It's not like we're enjoying this. we get involved to try to help people out and to figure out the best way to get through it. But our belief is that if you, with most of the people, and again, those people that are all out for revenge, there's nothing's going to happen. I have a guy I'm working on, I believe he came from you guys, I'm not 100% sure. He's been in Rikers twice. He doesn't care. And those are the type of people, they are not the average people. But maybe part of this could potentially be, and I think it's important, I believe, and I have certain things I'm more than happy to share individually, of things that you could find before a marriage to try to key in if this person is this type of personality. It's something to try instead of getting stuck into the marriage.
Definitely share that list with us. Another question.
Good evening, rabbis. My name is Ricky. I'm proud to say I'm actually the first get at the LEV organization. I also have the deepest, utmost respect for the two rabbis here. I see another one has joined. Many rabbis are scared to attend such events. They like to come to things that give them a lot of kavod for good things, for nice things. Oh, look at me, I've inspired, I've done all these great things. But very few will actually stand up for the good cause to help those in need. So you have my 100% respect, all of you, for being here. I have two questions. My first question is, the first rabbi, about many years ago, I love the Tony and Maria story. I think incredible. And I do believe in the old days, divorces were way less. But I also believe what I heard from people, and I remember my grandma's friend turned to me, and I was a young girl, and you're 100% right, for both of you, that I went into marriage with hope. I had hope for a wonderful, wonderful future. I had hope for raising my children, a happy, loving family. Nobody ever goes into a marriage thinking it's going to end the way it is. And I think for a lot of us here, and that Gunnar said here currently, I don't believe that anybody stepped out easily. We didn't look at the marriage as disposable. But I remember my grandmother's friend who passed away in deep distress because she said today's generation are very lucky because we were unable to get out. We were forced to stay in abusive situations. And while I agree, there are a lot of them. Today it's very disposable, especially the very young ones. They get married, they have the one disagreement, I'm out. Because they're so used to getting their way at home. And, oh, I'm asking mom for something, she's giving me this, she's giving me that. Suddenly you get into a marriage and you want all this and that, and it's two people here and you're not getting your way every single time in the walk. But trust me that every woman in this room waiting for a get have tried so hard in order to make it work. And by the time I got to the LEV, and by the time they got to the LEV, last resort. I think that's my first. My second question, which I think is a little bit of chutzpah, but I just have to...
First one before you get
you
to
can
the
answer,
second
yes.
one.
Sure,
Who's
go
track?
ahead.
I made it a point of saying when I started, I'm not judging anyone in this room, and I did that for that exact point. By the way, I do remember you speaking last year, and you spoke very well, so I recognize your face.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, there's, you know, we talk about the concept of abuse, stuff like that. I actually speak about it quite often. I could look at a lot of my parents, more older than some people, obviously my age group. I do believe that a lot of these people lived miserable lives, and I agree with that. I think that it's a much more difficult world today. I think you have more mental health issues today. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. But because of the world that we're living in, I believe there's more mental health issues. And there's no question about it that people that have to live with these people, it's impossible. I've spoken to many therapists who told me when they first began in the mental health field, bringing these matters to the fore, their offices were ransacked. They were driven off the road. So there's no question about it. I understand that. No one's judging anyone in this room. But people that are, when I alluded to the fact that yes, we need to have certain cases I use a term about, I'll be careful because President Trump may be listening, I know he came in. But could you imagine being married to President Trump? I mean, he is not the easiest person to be living with. I love him, I'm not going to talk political, but just the personality. So we understand that there are difficult personalities. And those personalities are difficult, and I alluded to that before. I believe that if we did a little more education prior to marriage, I can give you a list of things that could potentially save people's lives by giving them that information before marriage. so they don't get into these abusive marriages.
I agree 100%. Definitely.
No one is asking anybody to stay in an abusive marriage. What we are asking is make every attempt to try and make it work. There are things that can be done out there today that are amazing, that could keep a family together. And let's face it, it's true. Maybe you married a person who is not the best, but for the sake of the children and for the wife and for what her future is looking at, maybe a half a husband is better than no husband, plain and simple. Or the other way around, half a wife is better than no wife. And we really have to work hard to keep people together. The tragedy of the children is beyond. Children really suffer. Sometimes they suffer when the abusive one is in the marriage. Sometimes they suffer when they leave the marriage. But we have to worry about the family as a whole and do whatever we can to try and keep it together and not to live in an abusive environment for the rest of your life. We're not asking anybody to do that. But there is help out there.
Just on that note, I'll tell you that I personally saved a 40-year marriage. And it took the spouse that was the difficult spouse to acknowledge it. And the reason he did is because he lost connection to all his children. And he realized, I got to get myself help. And I got him to a phenomenal therapist, and he worked on it. But that's not the norm. I could honestly say that someone who's married to that age, obviously in the 60s or whatnot, changing your ways is not simple at a young age, certainly not in that age. But to his credit, he saved his life and his whole family's life.
And in the very, very rare occasion when there is abuse and when it does happen, enough credit has to also be given to the women. And again, there's a lot of women in this room now that are showing their children that abuse stops here. What they're doing is breaking the cycle, because a lot of the children that grow up in such type of household, they get married and they're actually mirroring their upbringing, their action, and to them it's normal. Not always do both sides agree to go together. You need to have both sides ready to come to the table, and when only one side is coming to the table, then sometimes there is no other recourse.
I appreciate that you brought it up, because that's one of the things I actually put on my table, right? That's my list. If I need two people to mediate, if one person is there, even if the other one is there, but they're not there physically, not there mentally, but they're there physically, it doesn't really help. You need to have two people that really want to make it.
Correct. The second one, which is an idea, which is my chutzpah idea, I heard the rabbi say that let's offer them money. If they want 50,000, if they want 100,000, let's give it them to give the divorce. When you have the husband that's straight out refusing to accept money because I want my wife to suffer, as in Chava, give her that $100,000. We were ready to give it to him. Give it to her. Let her send her children to camp. Let her marry them off. Let her make customers. But let's raise that money and give it to. That's the most.
We do give agonot money. You can ask around in the community. Sometimes they need it for camp. They'll need it for tuition. They'll need it to holiday. We do give them money.
And I agree. And I have been a recipient of it. And I never forget. And I mentioned it last year. And I'm going to mention it again this year, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to Sean and Alana sitting here, Stephen as well, because it's always been behind. When I was around, Stephen was very much behind the scenes. I heard Stephen, I didn't even know if he really existed. We had to speak to Steve, and I never really met him. But I remember my first conversation, and I mentioned it last year. I was 2 hours on my first phone call, and it was on Erev Pesach. And right away they said, what are you doing, Chol Hamoed? And I'm like, what am I doing? Nothing. I can't. We're busy. Court was taking up our life, and the rabbis and everything else. And they said, here's the first thing we're going to do. We've just selling. What's your Zelle? Venmo. I didn't have Venmo. They taught me. I think Alana taught me how to set up Venmo. $500 was in my account. Please take your children to Great Adventures tomorrow morning. And that's where we were. My children were going up and down the roller coasters while I was continuing my conversation on the phone with them. So I agree. But thank you again very, very, very much for coming out and supporting.
Thank you for your question, Rabbi Stanker. We have another question here.
I don't know. First of all, thank you very much to the LEV organization for what they're doing, such amazing work for the community, for the women and men in the community who are going through difficult times. My question is to the rabbis. I'm not familiar with the contract, with the prenup that you created, but I know that there's been issues in the past where rabbis and people don't like the prenup because there's a stigma to it, either that you're planning for an exit while you're entering into a marriage, which people don't like, and because it makes it easy. It makes it easy at the end if there is a problem to get out. You really want them to try to work it out first. My question is twofold. First, does the agreement, or could the agreement provide that prior to going to binding arbitration, there is going to be those sessions that are, I think you mentioned that there were, but I wasn't sure if it was part of the agreement or not, because that would be one way maybe to get more of the rabbis in the community to agree to it and to promote it. And the secondary subsequent question to that is, has it been discussed between the rabbis to make it a mandatory thing in order to get married, just like our marriage classes are mandatory before we're allowed to marry children in the community, that we also mandate first education about what the prenup really is, how halakhic prenup really is, and to mandate that it is signed before marriage so that we don't have another generation of the same problem.
Very good question. I appreciate that. So you asked a lot of questions. I'll try to remember. If I forget something, please remind me. The first question I actually addressed, which was making it easier to get divorced. I did bring up the example. Just if you go back, I just mentioned specifically that because there's a healthy way to deal with it, and to answer your second question as part of it, one of the first things, the first thing that the Bezdin must do is deal with the shalom bias issue. It's in the contract. And if there is a way to save the marriage, that's the first thing. So just for the sake of understanding, right away, husband goes ahead, let's assume he's the moneyed spouse. So he goes ahead and cuts back the child support. The family can't live. You say you want shalom bayis, you want to have a happy house. If there's no money to put food on the table, it's very difficult to have a happy home. So within the contract, it gives the Bezdin a very clear guidance of what is expected of them, which is number one, let's minimize the fighting, let's go to shalom bayis, let's give interim support that will, interesting halakhically speaking, one of the things we had written in the agreement was that it would support the spouse, meaning the wife, with the children. And they took out the wife because halakhically speaking, it's possible the wife wouldn't be entitled under certain circumstances to get mezainis, which is the foods for her to live. So we changed the agreement to get it to be something acceptable across the board, which says that it's only for the children, that the children should be able to maintain the home. But shalom bayis is the first thing that it talks about in the agreement. And everybody who's involved with this agreement believes, and these are not me, this is not me speaking, these are the biggest gedolim that we have in today's generation. They spent a tremendous amount of time. This didn't happen overnight. This took years. Rav Shlomo Miller worked on it first for 3 years before we even took it to the other gedolim. Rav Sternbach, who's the Pesach Hadar in Eretz Yisrael today, he's considered to be the foremost Pesach in Eretz Yisrael. He's almost 100 years old. He is the Pesach. He is someone who worked on it. I have pictures of it with literally a bunch of svarim on his table with the agreement going back and forth. When we changed things, he reads English. He's from Gateson, so he understands English. He really spent a tremendous amount of time. If we realize and understand that these are people who don't have a minute to their day, but they understood the value of trying to save the next generation, and they spend the time to go through it and to put into the agreement, with a lot of sake, a lot of brains, they spend the time to go ahead and to take all the games out and to make sure that there's a healthy way forward. We believe we will save a lot of marriages because of it. On the contrary, it won't be an easy way out. We're not looking to give an easy way out. But if it's a healthy way out, that's what we're looking for. And as far as what you're asking, this is something that the other agreement in the YU community, they have that no one gets married. Their Rosh Hashivas will not take anyone to the chuppah unless they sign the agreement. Interestingly enough, is a number of the YU Rabbanim are using our agreement because it's a much more halachically acceptable agreement, to the extent that the Bezdin of America, which is their Bezdin, asked me if they can send out a letter stating that they acknowledge our agreement and they're willing to adjudicate our agreement. So a number of their Rabbanim are using because it is a more thorough agreement and it's more halachically acceptable. So that's something that the rabbis in the community, we're not telling rabbis or saying everyone has to sign the agreement. What we believe is it's going to take time. And it's going to take time for people to realize there's no downside. As more and more people use it, it becomes more and more acceptable. But at least in the initial stage, and that's what I was saying, the importance of at least the difficult cases, and the rabbis know before the marriage, this case is a difficult case. As was mentioned before, maybe they come from a dysfunctional home, maybe there are issues with the couple before the marriage, it's a second marriage, whatever the case may be. Or if someone says, you know what, I want it. So if it's someone that says that I want it, should be something that people acknowledge it's an acceptable thing to do. To say that everyone has to do it, that's an individual, each rabbi has to make a decision if that's what they want to do.
How do we get the rabbis to be on the same side?
Then you have to talk to the rabbis. I spoke to them already.
We'll work on that. We have another question, but first we want to welcome Rabbi Eisenkot of Beth Torah. Thank you for coming. And we also want to welcome Rabbi Chaim Arkin from the Law School of the Shul, also present. You have a question?
I'm sure a lot of reluctant husbands will be watching this later, and this is a question that I was hoping they would be able to see you answer. And first, I want to also thank you for coming in and showing your support for this cause. At the end, once everything reconciles, I think this is a little bit different than a normal divorce, where the husbands are often ostracized, as the Rabbi Rosari mentioned, and there's suruvim and hakot and all these things, and it makes it a public thing. And obviously the children are aware and they hear about this. At the end of the day, do you see it possible, which I think you would say yes, that children could eventually reconcile with their parents, and how do you think that they would go about that?
First of all, I recognize you from last year as well.
Thank you.
You spoke about last year. Alienation is a humongous topic today. It is totally beyond the realm of what we should be talking about here. It's not a simple topic. I won't say I'm the expert on it, but unfortunately I've dealt with a tremendous amount of alienation cases. Part of what, just to use it in the scope of what we're talking here, and it's not always, it was mentioned too many times, it takes two people to make an agreement. If you have one difficult spouse, the children, very often from that difficult spouse, can destroy the children, could poison the children, could alienate the children. Not all alienation, people think, oh, I'm talking to the mother, father, whatever it is, they're the problem. On the contrary, very often the abusive spouse alienates the children against a good parent. And very often it's the other way. So alienation is a very, very bitter topic. A lot of what we are trying to accomplish is to minimize all of what we spoke about, the pain of divorce, the damage of divorce. Alienation, these things, that is what we're trying to minimize. And you actually just got me thinking for a second. I look up the labor organization. They're not trying to go out there and make noise in the community and build it up. They're trying to keep it quiet. They've sent me quite a number of cases to try to get me to mediate so it doesn't get to the point that it's got to go to the streets, so it doesn't destroy the family. It's only in the rare cases that they can't get someone to agree to mediate that they have no choice. And when you get to that point, of course, the kids suffer.
Thank you.
We don't have all the answers.
He has something to share. Listen up.
I just want to attest to the fact that you were saying that, in my opinion, LEV is not an organization that helps facilitate divorce. I think, respectfully disagree with Rabbi Rosari. I think they're an organization that helps facilitate peace. And without getting into too much detail about my experiences, that the LEV organization has done more than Stephen and Sean and anyone who works around the scenes to help make peace whether it's between me and both my parents, and no other organization, no other rabbi, no other mentor that I've ever had has facilitated as much shalom as the LEV organization has. Thank you.
Okay, who else has questions? This is the time. Stand up.
Hi, Rabbis. I just wanted to say, Rabbi Kassin, Shalom, our rabbi, was a leader, and he looked at what was going on in the society, and he made changes that were needed based on where we were. You know, we had this problem with converts, and they made an edict to stop that problem. You know, there were other problems that were out there. He made the matzo ball dance, or whatever was needed at the time. Although it wasn't perfect and it wasn't exactly right, he looked at the community as a whole, and his spirit was to save our community and to fix the problems. And he had a long-term picture. And this is a big problem, this Agonot. It's a big problem, and I think that a lot of the rabbis and a lot of everybody is kind of patching it. You know, they're putting a Band-Aid on it or trying to fix here or there. But no one's taking a serious stand to make an edict. Like they said, why can't the rabbis get together and say, hey, this is what we want. We're going to fix this problem. I don't want to have Band-Aids. Lost it? There it is. I think that we want to see a solution to the problem and not a Band-Aid. And I think it's doable, but I think the rabbis have to get together. I know not everybody agrees with everybody, and it's not easy, but I think if they look for the good of the community, that we could hopefully fix this problem.
Rabbi Kassin, Alav Shalom, was one of the greatest men I ever met in my life. I revere him to this very day. I have a portrait-sized picture in my office of the rabbi. The rabbi was the rabbi of a community of about 5,000 people. Today you have a community of 80,000 people. And you have many different facets in the community. The day of Rabbi Kassin, almost everybody was one way. It's a very, very different community today. And you have people who have their rabbi, not one rabbi. There's people that have this rabbi, people have that rabbi, people have this rabbi, and you need it because you have 80,000 people in the community. Rabbi Kassin also did not address the Aguna problem. He had some of them in his day. Yes, he addressed converts. He addressed other issues in the community, which I can tell you right now, things that he changed. But he didn't address the Aguna problem. Why he didn't address it, I don't know. But I can tell you that there are rabbis in the community, behind the scenes, who work with Agunot on a regular basis. They take care of them, they talk to them, they try to find them a solution. There are rabbis who are working out there. Nobody's sleeping when it comes to an Agunah. They're sensitive. The same way they're sensitive to an Almanah or to a Grusha. They are sensitive to them. And you may not see it as a layman, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with each individual rabbi, with their people. Rabbi Azikov, your office is busy? You don't know? I know. Okay. Deal with all kinds of problems all day and all night. Okay, you need more business. Yes. Okay. But there are rabbis working. It's a very, very difficult concept. And there have been meetings a number of years ago when we started getting people together and making protests. And enough of these agunot, we have to free them. It was a hullabaloo out there, what was going on in the streets and in people's homes and in offices. And we hope the LEV organization could find a different path how to do this and accomplish this. But yes, there are people working out there.
Okay, we have Rabbi Chaim Arkin. A question. Rabbi?
I want to say I have a question. We're bit of a mouthful what to say, but originally when I met Stephen, we were a little skeptical about the strength of the organization, the direction of the organization, but I'm happy to tell you that after many years of working together in the background, I like sitting in the background, I like the front seat, that you guys are really doing tremendous to promote peace, and if that's the goal, that can always be accomplished. Interesting, there was even, again, a number of years ago, a number of months ago, that we came finally to the finish line to unfortunately facilitate. We were in Bet Torah, the couple was there. After all the steps were taken, the get was written, the get was signed. Rabbi Azakat, do you remember? And Brit Milah for that child that they did not get divorced that day was in Lawrence Avenue just recently. So basically, even if there's a sharp sword, God forbid, on somebody's neck, the person should not forget about mercy. And at the time that they were sitting there at the table, Baruch Hashem, we were able to facilitate that, they were able to reconcile at that point. And it's a tremendous lesson that I learned myself, and to anybody ever involved, at all points, if things are done properly, holistically, like Goldem said beautifully, that when you deal with the thing as a whole picture, it really is a world of difference. People who come in with one angle, with one side, it doesn't work like that. Bilam was the guy who has Shetum Ha'ayin, only one eye. And he's the person who taught Ayin Ra'ah. But you never find Inayim Ra'od, plural eyes, because when a person just looks with one eye, not with the whole picture, not with the whole eye, you're not going to see the peace. Bezrat Hashem, you guys should continue great work to do peace, and even till the last minute to be able to see who could be saved.
Thank you, Rabbi. You know, I wanted to say one more thing that, first of all, any more questions? And one more thing very important to point out, that it's not only that the girl has trouble in the marriage, it could be also the guy, the male, the husband wants to get out of the marriage, and the woman doesn't lot. So there are such cases like that as well in the community. Anyone else have a question? Now's your time. You have the rabbis here.
We're going to take 2 more questions.
2 more questions, so one more after this. Please ask.
I did want to say thank you to the rabbis who are here. I think your support and your presence means everything for people who might say stigma. Thank you. My question was, in that very famous picture, it was very notable that it was a table of men to help a woman to receive her get. And I know that in other areas where there are women's issues, in areas of nidal or in halacha, where you can go to a woman for a woman's issue, and if there were pathways to help get more mental health professionals, but also specifically to get women to help them for this issue.
Go to my website, check out the people involved with my organization, find quite a few women.
I'm one of them, by the way, in the LEV organization. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I specialize in grief, trauma, and loss. Any other questions? We have one more question.
I just want to say that the people in our organization are as well quite a number of mental health professionals who are very involved with the agreement and helping us to navigate the divorces.
Hello, I'm David Gindi. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody in the LEV organization for all their time donated and all their hard work. Ellie, thank you. Rabbi Zeri, I understand that you're going through a lot right now. Thank you for being here. So, my question really revolves around hashkafa, and my wife asks me this all the time, hashkafa, that, and I really would like to ask for the Rabbi, if you could explain to me why the Torah has set, why do we think the Torah has set the rules this way to give the man so much power? And I was told in the past it's to be able to protect the woman, it's to be able to respect the woman, but I just don't understand, and I think some clarity could really help out here.
Great question, David.
Not everything that the Torah writes do we have to understand. We have to follow. Not everything that's written there do we understand. Again, the Torah writes that when a woman gets married, she's sanctified to the man. And for her to be unmarried, she needs to be released from the man. And the Torah writes, you have to write her again. And that's the beginning and that's the end. Mitzvah said to write your wife again, give her a get. These refusers are evil, they're enemies of God. Literally. They are enemies of God. Why do some women have to suffer? And why other women, it's easy for them? We don't have an answer for that. But we know one thing, the same way we have to eat kosher, and we may not understand that, and we have to keep Shabbat, and all the other mitzvot that we have in the Torah. It's not for us, not necessarily we have to understand. We have to follow the Torah as difficult as it is. It's written and we have to follow, whether we understand or we don't understand.
I mean, that's true. I always heard that from my parents, but still.
One second. I think that the question is not accurate. I'm going to say, it's not at the same point that the Torah is giving the power on the fact that the man is the one who's giving the get. The great power is given to the deen that can force the man to give a get if it is necessary and can force it to death. We don't have that bedin. That's another question. That's not a life of Torah that we're only living. But the same moment that the Torah gave the power, yeah, the antidote was the power of the bedin. Makinoto, if he has to give the get, Makinoto, Hashemah Rocheani, until either he give her or she's widow. Simple choice. So that's appropriate, that's the point of view of Torah. Now, Ba'avonot Harabim, we're not living on fact that the Torah is fulfilling all, it can be fulfilled only in all its way. That's why you have, so we have to manage with what we have, and instead of having that power of the Bedin, we have what the rabbi just explained before. We have rabbis who are really working hard behind the scene and in front of the scene, yeah, and doing that more politically correct, more nicely. We don't beat anyone, we don't beat anyone, but the job mostly get done. You have some exceptions, but mostly get done.
Thank you, rabbis. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline is definitely a very important part of our organization, working with our women on a monthly support group. We appreciate all the work that you do. Your dedication is greatly appreciated. We have about 10-15 more minutes, so please hang in with us. I now have the honor of introducing to you two remarkable women who have shown incredible strength and resilience. They are two of our most recent success stories, Esther Aboud and Mazi Levy. For those of you who weren't here last year, both Esther and Mazi spoke on our panel as agonot, each enduring this challenging situation for each years, collectively over 16 years. Thanks to the patience and determination of my team, I am proud to announce that the LEV organization has successfully helped both Esther and Mazi secure their kosher gets this year. They are no longer agonot, and their journeys towards freedom have become a source of inspiration for all of us. I'd like to invite Esther and Mazi now to share a few words. Please join us in welcoming Esther and Mazi.
To our esteemed rabbis, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the LEV organization, I stand here before you today with a small heart full of gratitude and joy. Just 1 year ago, both Mazi and myself sat before you as agunot. each enduring the pain and isolation that comes from being trapped in a situation that we thought we would face. Together, we represent 16 years of collective struggle. But today, we both celebrate our freedom. Today, we both stand here as women who had received a kosher get, and its transformation is a testament to the LEV organization and the work of LEV organization. I just want to stand here and just say thank you to all LEV organization, but especially to Sean and Stephen for being by my side every step of the way and helping me get through this. Without them, I don't know where I would be today. So thank you.
I want to express my deepest appreciation to the entire LEV organization team. Your hard work, dedication, and unwavering support have truly changed our lives. Without your tenacity and consistency, I honestly cannot say where I would be today. You believed in us, fought for us, guided us through our darkest moments. For that, I'm eternally grateful. The LEV organization is not just an organization, it is a lifeline for those in need. Your selflessness, commitment to helping others shine through in everything you do. I urge all of you to continue spreading the word about this incredible organization and the vital work they carry out. Together we can ensure that more individuals find the support and liberation they deserve. Thank you, LEV organization, for helping to liberate us and for all that you do. Your impact is immeasurable, and I'm proud to stand with you in this mission. Thank you so much. You're the best. Yes.
Thank you, ladies. To all of the Agonot that are here tonight, and to all those that couldn't make it, you have my promise, not only for myself, but for my entire team. We will not give up until you are freed. We will do everything that we can to work on a peaceful resolution between you and your husband, and with all of the rabbis' helps, we will try to bring you to a proper place that you could move on and you're no longer chained. So you have my word and promise on that. As we reach the end of the remarkable evening, I want to once again take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to Rabbi Ozeri, Eli Goldbaum, and to all of the other rabbis that came out, and to our esteemed speakers. Thank you for your inspiring words and unwavering dedication. And of course, to all of you that have come out tonight, your presence and support means the world, not only to myself, but to all of the women. Tonight, we celebrate not only our individual achievements, but also the incredible collective power that has allowed us and our organization to thrive. Unity is our strength, and there's undeniable power in numbers. We stand together against the injustices of get refusal and parental alienation, and together we have the ability to make a difference. I want to extend a special thank you to my team. Your unwavering commitment, even in the face of adversity, has been the driving force behind our success. Tonight, and indeed the success of our organization, would not be possible without each and every one of you. You have all played crucial roles in driving change and making a real impact. I thank you so much. As we look to the future, let us continue to move forward together, united in our mission. Let us support one another and work towards a society where get refusal is a thing of the past. A future where our children and grandchildren will never have to know the pain of being an Agonah. If you have any relatives or friends getting married, please speak to them about signing one of the halachic prenuptial agreements. You should consult with your local rabbi to see which best fits your needs. In closing, I want to express my deepest appreciation to my wife. Her unwavering support and tolerance for the late night phone calls and meetings have been invaluable. To all my mentors who have guided me, and to each of you here tonight, and to my family, I thank you. Together, we have made a lasting impact, and I have no doubt that our collective efforts will continue to shape a better future for all. Before we conclude, I'd like to open the floor to anyone who's interested in making a tax-deductible donation to the LEV organization. We greatly need assistance with bet din fees, lawyer fees. We do a lot of holiday different programs for the women. Again, that we do have men clients as well. I'll start off the evening by donating $1,000 in honor of my wife, the entire LEV team, and the rabbis and Ellie for coming out tonight and speaking. Robert Dweck, 201. If you could please just state your name and the amount, it would be appreciated. Eli Mizrahi, 1001. Laura Winarski. How much? 501. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Eli. Ralph Beta, 1,000. 1001. We're including the dollar. Esty Nickberg, $100. Ricky's daughter. Noted. Kim Shamia, 501. Wow. Does the husband want to double it? No pressure, no pressure. Mazi Levy, 301. Robin Rowis, 501. In honor of Robin Rowis. She's paying, okay. We might need Shalom Bayit, the shoes, Rabbi. Albert Salem, 1,001. Anybody else? Your name again, I apologize. David Gindi, 501 in honor of Sean and Alana. Shalom Bayit. Ralph Sid, 501. Thank you. Okay.
501 in honor of Sean.
And Alana. Okay, 501. Thank you. I like it. I like this guy. Thank you. Anybody else before we wrap up the evening? Rochelle Sid, 201 in honor of Perry. Eva Shama, $360. Thank you also for the amazing work you do with Habayit. Amazing. Anybody else?
201 in honor of all the ladies in my support group.
Carolyn Kornman, 201 in honor of all of the Agonot in the support group. Thank you. Okay. Last call. We need Harry Adjemi at this point. You got it. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. He got stuck in a lot of traffic, had a late meeting, but Harry is amazing. All right. I thank you all for coming tonight and for your support. Thank you for your commitment to the vital cause. Rabbis, thank you again. Please enjoy some maza outside, some drinks.